Hello, everyone. Welcome back to TJ Shorts, our series of video interviews with recent Theater Journal authors. I'm here today with Dr. Nicolas Fesette, who's Associate Professor of Theater at Emory University's Oxford College. Dr. Fesette's article, Abolitionist Laughter, The Joint Movement to #Stop Cop City, was published in Theater Journal, Volume 76, Number 3, in September 2024. Hey, Nick. Thanks so much for joining me today for this new installment of Theater Journal Shorts.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Really excited to delve more into your article that's coming out in the next issue of Theater Journal. So I was wondering if you could just begin by giving our viewers a brief summary of the topic of your article and its main argument.
Yeah, great. So the short version, the shortest possible version I can give is that my article is about the fact that sometimes when you're faced with a situation that's so evil, so twisted and perverse, all you can do is laugh, and that laughter has power in it. The longer version is that my article is about the movement to stop Cop City, which viewers may have heard of, and if they haven't, here's a very brief summary. So the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta, they want to build a police training facility in South River Forest, which is located right in Atlanta. It's also known by the Muskogee name Weelaunee. And this site, it was once Muskogee Creek land, which was stolen and made into a plantation. And then later, it was actually a prison farm where incarcerated people, many of them, most of them Black, labored for the profits of the prison. So more recently, last year, contractors have cut down around 90 acres of forest, and they've since poured foundation for like a mock city block where police from around the world, from Atlanta, other parts of Georgia, other parts of the US, but also like Israel, they'll come to this site, to this mock city block, and they'll train in urban warfare. There's like a shooting range there, there's a track for car sort of actions, and then like a mock bar and a storefront and these sort of things. This whole enterprise is costing millions and millions of dollars in private and taxpayer money. I think it's around $67 million in public funds so far, and then private money as well. And then the cost of that is probably going to go up. And so, because it's a city block, activists have called this Cop City, and there's been for years now movement to try to obstruct this. So my article starts on June 5th, 2023, when the Atlanta City Council opened the floor for a public comment on the facility. So at this meeting, hundreds of community members came out and voiced their opposition to the construction of Cop City. Public comment lasted something like 15 hours, almost 15 hours. And the proceedings, they broke records for both the length of time for in-person public comment, as well as the number of speakers at City Hall. 357 people signed up to speak, and by the end, 234 people actually spoke in opposition to Cop City. Only 4 people spoke in support of Cop City. Eventually, after the public comment section, the city council went back to its usual business, and they voted in support of Cop City. They voted to approve the additional funds, by a vote of 11-4, which effectively ignores hundreds of people, hundreds of their constituents who came out to #Stop Cop City. So my article looks at this meeting, looks at the use of what I call abolitionist humor by the activists in that meeting and in the broader Stop Cop City movement. I argue that humor brought people together in the city council meeting in acts of abolitionist refusal. These were what I call joint acts, in which the pivot point, the joint, is both method and mode. And I mean joint in all senses of the word. I mean a performance unifying social and aesthetic, a place of bending between the everyday and the theatrical, the center of a spectrum with 2 opposing poles, on one side policing and on the other side the abolition of police. And I also mean a cultural artifact of craftsmanship, sharing, silliness, transgression, and intoxication. I do mean the marijuana cigarette. The joint is a place of intersection, of articulation, of movement, of resistance, and of communion. The article's divided into three parts. The first part, I provide some further context about Stop Cop City, and some analysis of the movement. In the second part of the article, I look at the way police use laughter as a way to like seductively obscure their violence. And then the last part of the article, I memorialized Tortuguita, who was an indigenous queer forest defender who was murdered by Georgia police. And I discussed the ecological dimensions of the police and prison abolition movement. So humor is a key feature of what I term the dramaturgies of abolition. And this is not to say that all laughter is abolitionist. Instead, I claim that a major aspect of abolitionist performance is the lively use of comedy to offer a kind of corrective to the sober self-seriousness of reform. The collectivizing affects of laughter are invaluable to building and motivating radical coalitions like Stop Cop City. In contrast to the performances of police power, which also use comedy, the abolitionist laugh strives to connect people together across time and space and undo hierarchies and individualism. And abolitionists finally perform the value of life through laughing and bring ourselves into mutual recognition and community against the pain of carceral capitalist extraction and death.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for that. I find this approach to handling humor really resonates with a lot of what I've been observing in my teaching recently, which is students sometimes feel like if we're going to address enormous problems like carcerality, we must do so through serious drama, quote unquote. And so I love the idea that humor is both a tactic, a tool, something that can push the movement forward, but also something that has been co-opted by the other side. And so it allows you to handle something that is extremely troubling and very real, but also to see the way that we can mobilize laughter and a little bit of lightness, perhaps even in these really dark moments. So thank you for that
exactly.
fascinating, fantastic contribution. How did you come to this topic?
It's really personal connection. So I came to write the article because the topic is close to me politically. I am an abolitionist of police and prisons, but it's also close to me geographically. You know, I live in Atlanta. I've lived here for 6 years, which is basically the time frame that Cop City was dreamt up by political and business elites and has been planned and is now like under construction. My daughter attends pre-K and in my neighborhood public school, and I really want her to grow up in a place that invests more in education and in healthcare than it does in police. So I've been, since my time living here, I've been to protests and rallies and donated money to different causes and local causes and participated on academic panels and guerrilla theater workshops and art builds, and I've tried to teach my students about this local movement as much as I can. And humor, like you said, I focus on humor because in my experience, like contrary to what one might expect, based on the seriousness of the subject of police violence and the mainstream media representation of radical political movements, abolitionist activism I've found is a party. It's like a party that anyone can join, and often it's a party that is riotously funny, even though it's about quite serious subject matter. And so I wanted to take this specific lens of humor because radical politics, I think, can be misunderstood to be dour and can be exhausting, but this doesn't have to be the case. Radical desire and militant outrage, they're not even tempered by comedy like one might assume. They're I think that they can actually be buttressed and buoyed by the poetics of comedy, I guess.
Well, it certainly sounds like I'm not sure I would have previously used the word party to describe everything that you've just described, but I like that idea. It definitely makes me want to join the fun question mark.
It's not that's not my that I should cite Allison Rose Reed and their book Love and Abolition, and it's in that book that abolition as a party is really it, they really like put that framework forward. It's a really fun book to read, I think.
Thank you for that recommendation. So, viewers, after you read the article, also check out this book. Um, just next question, how does this particular article connect to the broader concerns of your research, or how do you see it connecting to some of the ongoing conversations in theater and performance studies?
Yeah, so my work is interdisciplinary. It connects abolition and critical prison studies with theater and performance studies. And this article is revised from a chapter of my book in progress, which is titled Performance After Policing Abolition Dramaturgies in Carceral America. And my book not only considers how performance contributes to liberatory and abolitionist movements, resistant movements, but it also looks at how performance has historically served to support and circulate the logics of imprisonment. So, my article is about humor being useful for abolitionists, but also how humor is useful for the police. That's kind of what my whole book project is about. And my book, also draws on personal experiences, like my proximity to Cop City. But it also draws upon the 5 years I spent working as a teaching artist in Auburn Correctional Facility, which is a maximum security men's prison in upstate New York, where I helped facilitate a theater group with some community members and professors, Professor Bruce Levitt, his wife Judy, Professor Allison Van Dyke, Norm Johnson, and others. And we sort of helped this company of incarcerated writers and performers called Phoenix Players Theater Group put on performances. And so my book, builds on these personal experiences to make broader claims about carcerality in the U.S. And further, I think Stop Cop City, it's a local movement for sure, but it has global connections. It's really not, it is an Atlanta issue, but it's not just an Atlanta issue. So if your city, wherever you live, your municipality, your town, wherever your college is, if they haven't already built a cop city, they're planning to do so. There are like multiple sites around the country, many sites around the country where a very similar thing that's happened here and that's happening here is happening elsewhere. And I really think that laughter offers one possible avenue for radical action, right? These cop cities are really, like I said at the beginning, so perverse and twisted and evil that laughter can be a way to connect you with other people and sort of get you moving on the ground. And I think, I really think Stop Cop City is a kind of a essential movement of our times for combating racism and capitalist ecological destruction. And I think to support the repair and restoration of the environment, activists and community organizers, they continue to find ways to obstruct Cop City and to demonstrate its connections to broader carceral violences and ecological devastation. In Atlanta, they stage direct actions to hamstring contractors. There's community meetings and art builds. There are weekly protests at South River Forest at the Cop City site. There's material and symbolic support for the 61 people that Georgia has charged with domestic terrorism, activists and protesters. They've charged with domestic terrorism. There's agitation here alongside college students who built solidarity encampments in the spring at my institution at Emory and at others. People publish critical articles in international venues, et cetera, all these kind of ways to stop Cop City. This diverse sort of decentralized movement against police expansion. And they draw global connections between Atlanta police and conflicts abroad. demonstrating like the direct connection between Cop City and Palestine and Sudan and Congo and other sites of oppression and struggle. And so I think I think theater and performance uh, is uniquely poised to contribute to this movement in a number of ways.
Thank you for that. And I think that you've already started in that question to get into a little bit of the last question. But one of the main goals of this video series is to make articles published in Theater Journal more accessible to broader audiences, especially
Mm.
students who might be assigned to read this for a class or non-specialists just starting to read into scholarship on abolition. So for those readers, what would you say are some of the key takeaways of your article?
Um, I've got three. I've got three things in mind. The first is that I think that theater and performance are always political, always, um, and that policing is always political, and that the politics of these things, of theater and performance and of policing, these politics are never innocent. Um, there's always something, a little something else going on with police and with theater. And that doesn't mean, like we said, that we can't enjoy ourselves, right? My article is about comedy, about laughter, but I do think that critique and problematization and um, these and enjoyment, they're not mutually exclusive. Actually, I think they can be mutually enriching. So that's my first idea. My second is that I think my article is really about the overlap between theory and practice. Um, you know, uh, sort of traditional scholarship, thinking and writing and reading. We'll put that in the theory bucket, and then practice is like what we do with our bodies. Directing, acting, but also like street performance and other sorts of things. I think scholars are artists and artists are scholars. And my article is really trying to toggle between theory and practice and show how these things are imbricated and really aligned in key ways. And the final thing I'll offer is that so performances like the public comment section of the Atlanta City Council meeting, they're performances that can be really important objects of study, and yet they're often ignored. Uh, we should think about not just theater plays or performance art or political speeches of presidential candidates, but but like the ways that everyday people move in the world. And public comment is one of these. It's like a direct form of civic participation, of democratic participation. It's more theatrical and it's more immediate than voting, for instance. Um, Public comment may not be as like sexy as street performance, but it can be analyzed using like similar theoretical frameworks to better understand how it mobilizes radical demands for transformation and connects people together in community, especially in the digital era when our lives are recorded and live streamed and posted on social media. Performances uh, like those are, I think, really valuable objects for study.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say to viewers about the article or the topic at hand?
No, thanks for reading, and thank you, Taryn, for talking to me, and thanks to Theater Journal for publishing.
Well, thank you so much for your time. So for viewers, once again, the article is Abolitionist Laughter, the Joint Movement to hashtag Stop Cop City, can be found in volume 76, issue 3 of Theater Journal. So thank you again. Thank you to everybody for watching.